This episode is brought to you by Bank of America. From a local business to a global corporation, partnering with Bank of America gives your operation access to exclusive digital tools, award-winning insights, and business solutions so powerful you'll make every move matter. Visit bankofamerica.com/bankingforbusiness to learn more. What would you like the power to do? Bank of America, N.A., copyright 2023.
The first time I sang a note was when I started singing opera. I didn't grow up singing any other style of music, pop music, hip hop, or any of that kind of stuff. Maybe to my fault, I am a one-trick pony. I am an opera singer. I'm horrible at singing any other kind of music.
Welcome back to Working. I'm your host, June Thomas.
And I'm your other host, Isaac Butler.
Isaac, it's always lovely to see you, but I must know immediately, whose voice did we hear at the top of the show?
Yes, we heard the dulcet tones of the great Ryan Speedo Green. He's an opera bass baritone on the rise who's playing his first lead role at the Metropolitan Opera in Terence Blanchard's Champion.
Oh, muscle. And why did you want to speak with him? Are you an opera head?
I wouldn't exactly call myself an opera head. I'm opera curious. You know, my best friend from childhood is an opera composer conductor. He's actually friends with Speedo, so I got to say to Speedo, like, oh, you know, I bring you well wishes. My editor at Bloomsbury is a huge opera fan. And, you know, we live in a city with the... I live. We don't live anymore.
We don't live in the same one anymore.
Oh, boy. We, meaning Cameron and I, live in the city that has the Metropolitan Opera. So, you know, I feel like as I get older, like it's unexplored territory that I want to get more and more into. So I've enjoyed that part of, middle age, I guess. But I'm hardly an expert.
And so why did you want to speak with Speedo now?
Oh, yeah. Well, a couple of reasons. First of all, you know, Terence Blanchard, who is best known for doing the scores to Spike Lee's movies, is becoming a force in opera due to this opera he did called Fire Shut Up in My Bones. But Champion was actually the opera he wrote first. And Speedo, who had an important role in Fire Shut Up in My Bones, has now graduated to playing leading men with this show. And I knew that, like, it was a big deal for him in his career, but also, as you'll hear him discuss, like, it's a lot of work to play a boxer and be an opera singer at the same time. And I was just really fascinated both by where we are in his career as a creative artist and the creative challenges of opera. Oh,
that is so interesting. Before we get to the interview, I'm thinking it would probably be useful for listeners to hear how Speedo's singing voice sounds. So how about we listen to a few lines from one of his arias from the show?
The man I am, outside, this man that all this world can see. Who is this man? Who is this man who calls himself me?
Okay, wow. So that was Speedo singing the aria What Makes a Man from the show Champion that the Met put on YouTube. And there are a couple of things. First of all, he's kind of strutting around in his not his boxer shorts, but yeah, the shorts that boxers wear, right?
Boxing shorts, not boxing shorts.
Yes. And so, you know, his chest is exposed. You know, it's a very physical role. And the singing, obviously, that was, a one person singing there. But would you say that's kind of typical of the vibe of Champion?
It's typical of a vibe of Champion because there's a lot of different musical vibes or perhaps styles and genres going on at once. So you heard there it in its kind of American classical mode, right? Like if you're familiar with the way that American classical music and has engaged with kind of folk melodic traditions, you can really hear that there, you know? There is also jazz. There is also Afro-Caribbean. There is also the kind of more cinematic style that Blanchard is known for, you know, in his composition work. So no one song is going to capture the totality of the show. But I think that does capture how deeply felt and engaged Speedo is in the role.
Wow. All right. Well, I cannot wait to hear your interview, but I believe that you have an extra segment exclusively for Slate Plus members. What will they hear?
Yes, absolutely. We talk about Speedo's career, where he is in it, being a 37-year-old who's having leading roles, a bass baritone. That's actually kind of young for that. Mm-hmm. And so just talking about where he sees himself going and what his kind of dream parts are over the next few years.
All right. Well, if you're a member of Slate Plus, you'll hear that at the end of the episode. And if you aren't, it is so ridiculously easy to join. As a Slate Plus member, you'll get to hear extra segments on this show and on others like The Waves and Culture Gabfest. You'll get bonus episodes of podcasts like Big Mood, Little Mood and Apple's Podcast of the Year, Slow Burn. And of course, you will never hit a paywall on Slate.com. To learn more, go to slate.com/workingplus. All right, let's hear Isaac's conversation with Ryan Speedo Green.
Ryan Speedo Green, thank you so much for joining us today on Working to talk about your process.
Thank you for having me.
So I thought, why not start with where we are right now, which is to say you are playing Emile Griffith, the protagonist of Champion, an opera by Terence Blanchard with libretto by Michael Christopher that's currently running at the Met. So let me just ask, on a show day, you're performing at night. What is your day like leading up to that?
For this particular show, it's a little bit different than other ones. I'm not going to lie. When you're portraying a character, first of all, that's an athlete. Also, portraying a character that has to be half naked on stage for certain moments in the performance, you go about differently on your day. And so, my day, for instance, will start off with me getting up, drinking a liter of water, spreading out my caffeine intake more patiently, because usually I have 2 cups of coffee right when I wake up. But because I need to conserve my energy and have 1 cup of coffee, more water than coffee, kind of deal when I wake up. And then usually I go for a jog or a walk, either a long walk or a short jog. Even the food that I eat for this show is different than a normal show. So for instance, I have a bunch of berries, try and stick to not too many green foods, because as much as they're healthy and delicious during the week, during a show day, they make you feel really bloated and obviously make you poop and be gassy. And that's not something you want to have while you're taking punches or giving punches or, being half naked. So I stick to a lot of proteins that are like a chicken with no skin, not a lot of seasoning. If I do eat any sort of vegetable, it's a vegetable that's not very fibrous. And then I usually show up to the Met probably 2 hours before the show starts. Mm-hmm. Because not only to warm up, which you should be doing before any show, but also because of there's a lot of costumes and costume changes in this show, particularly for me.
Yeah. So how long is your vocal warm up?
So what I like to do is right after I have my sort of wake up my body workout, semi-workout, I like to come home around 11, 12 o'clock and start the process of doing about 20 to 30 minutes of a vocal warm-up, whether that means going through all my scales, a lot of lip trills, maybe sing 1 or 2 pages of each section of my role, because the role that I'm doing now of Emile Griffith in Champion, it's about, in a 2 hour and some change opera, I have about 50, 60 minutes of music. So I sing a couple pages of each number just to make sure that it's in my head, in my body, and obviously there's a lot of staging involved with the show, more so than a combination of 4 or 5 roles that I've done together. So I tend to want to go over that too in my living room. I just go over some of the staging, be here, movement here, and so what my voice teacher Mark Oswald told me, and has helped me a lot, is after you do your big warm-up, the 20 to 30 minutes of warm-up, just do a checkup on your voice every hour or a couple hours, just 2-minute, 3-minute checkup, where you just, if I warm up at 11 o'clock to 11:30, around 1 o'clock, I'll sing for 2 minutes, 3 minutes, just to make sure everything's good. And I'll do that about every hour, every 2 hours until I show up at the Met. 2 hours before the show. Then I'll do another like 10, 20-minute warm-up. And then from there, I don't sing a lick till I get on stage.
Because you don't want to blow it out?
You don't want to blow it out. And that's one of the things that the bigger the role, the less you want to be talking and using your voice throughout the day. And that's something, as this is my first lead role, my first major role in my career, you not only have to look out for your voice, but you have to look out for your brain as well. Like, sometimes we can be our own worst enemy as artists. And I can attest to this. Even if I tell myself, like, you're ready, the nerves hit. And that's something that I've had to also like get used to.
Yeah, totally. One thing that really blows my mind about opera coming from a theater background is the way that the rehearsal process is structured. So like in a normal play, you probably have like 4 weeks of rehearsal. The full cast is in the room. You're rehearsing 6 days a week. You're teching, you're dressing, you have previews, and then you're running one show, the same show. There's no rep, 6 performances a week or whatever for 3 to 6 weeks. Definitely not how it works in opera at all. So how many rehearsals did you have for Champion? Like actual official rehearsals as opposed to like working on it on your own?
This production, which as you saw, I believe you said you saw it Monday, opening night.
Yeah.
And and I don't know if you'd agree with me, but for me in my short little operatic career, I'm 37 years old, which is why I say it's a short operatic career, because most people in my voice type don't really start popping off till they're in their 40s. Mm-hmm. And so I'm very lucky that I'm doing it so early in my career. But this is probably the most theatrical, if not Broadway-like show I've ever been a part of.
It is a lot like a musical. Yeah. In terms of how the numbers relate to the narrative, also in terms of like the lighting rig. And yeah, no, it very much felt like a cousin of a Broadway musical almost.
And almost like, and it had everything a modern opera needs to be modern.
Right.
It's shorter than a lot of classical operas, but that's also great for modern opera audiences because, as much as I love being in an opera that's 4+ hours, and singing and being a part of that spectacle, because that is a spectacle and within itself, for a person who's not an opera fanatic, that might be a little much. And,
right.
and having an opera like this, which is a little bit over 2 hours, which tells a story very crisp, very fast, very intense and in a dramatic way that is concise and tells a beginning and an ending. It's an exciting experience. And for me, like as a performer and also seeing it as an audience member, I love that idea of going to an opera and being able to come home at a decent hour, as well as, seeing something that is like, gives me no chance to like take a nap.
Right. You also save on the sitter.
That's the baby.
Which, yeah, exactly. But so how many rehearsals did you actually have for the show?
So yeah, getting back to the question, this was a special case because I was mentioning that is a almost Broadway-like show. We had more rehearsals than normal. So I'm used to having 2 to 3 weeks of rehearsal before a show. Mm-hmm. Again, which is a show that is 4 hours long. You can imagine the stress of only having 2 weeks of rehearsal, sometimes even a week of rehearsal, depending where you are in Europe. This, we had about 3.5, 4 weeks of rehearsal.
So given how little time there is to work on a show, what are you expected to have prepared by day one of rehearsals?
In more repertory pieces, you have to come in pretty much guns a-blazing, like ready to perform. I've done shows in the past. The craziest is I did a Barber Seville where I sang Basilio in Il Barbiere di Sevilla, Barber Seville by Rossini, which is an opera that's longer than this opera. Mm-hmm. And I did it in 2 days. I had 2 days of staging and then an orchestra performance.
Wow.
And so for this particular production, because it is, first of all, brand new to the Met, it's not a repertory piece. It's also a piece that the composer had to compose more music for the Met. We had to know the music, but also we had to be ready for things to change. Mm. Because, once you get the jazz ensemble with the Met Orchestra in the pit,
right,
things may change. Vocally, things may change. You may need to add another part to an ensemble number, or even modulate something, or even recompose something completely so that it makes sense in a house like the Met.
Right. And so for our listeners, again, who maybe haven't seen a show at the Met, the thing to remember about opera is that, traditionally it is performed without any kind of amplification. And so shows really have to fit within the acoustic world of their houses. And the Met's acoustic world is very particular. And it was not built to have a jazz combo in the pit with a brilliant and famously aggressive drummer in it alongside the normal orchestra. So there's lots of adjustments having to be made to make sure that the vocals and the orchestration can sort of sit on top of each other properly.
Yeah, exactly. And I was very lucky that Terrence beforehand had worked with me on my part to make sure that it fit my voice specifically for this house and for this set of performances, because the person who's the singer before me sang it higher than I did.
Oh, got it.
So for me, I'm a little bit of a lower bass baritone than the person who sang it before me. So we had to adjust for my voice, and so I was able to sing things a little bit lower, but as well, like some parts of the piece that I was able to add my dramatic high notes that I do have. When I sing high, it's not necessarily the prettiest thing. It's very dramatic, but I wouldn't call it like, a sweet dulcet tone. Like, it is a very, very dramatic bass baritone high note. And I was able to add those in places where there were no high notes. And it made sense within the house and within the story.
Right. Got it. And so, just if I'm looking at a piano, what is your range on that piano? What is your bass baritone?
I think I have a good operatic low F below middle C on the piano, and then I have a pretty good like F sharp above middle C. And I actually in this opera I sing a low F and I sing a high G. I sing multiple high Gs. So at the very end of the show, I sing a high G, which you probably heard when I'm standing on top of the thing at the end of the day.
Yeah. So I'm also interested, obviously, you prepare at least some of, in this case, because the music's going to change, but you prepare the score, the score. How do you prepare as an actor as well? Because, you're not just standing there singing, you're playing a role, and you've clearly worked hard to think about like who this character is. It's not the same performance you gave in Boris Godunov or Fire Shut Up in My Bones, right? These are different characters. They demand different things. So how do you prepare as an actor?
So one thing for the audience to know is that this opera is pretty amazing in that the main character is portrayed in three different aspects of his life. So there's old Emile, which is portrayed by Eric Owens. And then there's young Emile, which is me, which is basically Emile in his prime, like from leaving his home in the Virgin Islands to his rise to be the 6-time welterweight champion of the world, to his fall to where he first had first signs of dementia, and then there's Kid Emile, who's portrayed by a child singer who portrays Emile as a child, is a boy soprano.
All three of whom are extraordinary. I have to say, having seen the show, they're incredible performances from those three sort of different points in Emile's life.
Yep, and so for me, when I got the offer for the role, I basically made a promise to myself, and I made a promise to Peter Gelb, the general director of the Met, and to Terrence Blanchard that not only was I going to put everything into the music of the role, like portraying this character in the best operatic way possible on the grandest stage, arguably in the world, but I was going to put in the work on my body and my mind to understand not only the physical demands of being a boxer, but also understand the mindset of a boxer. And so the day after I accepted the role, I went to my gym, started taking group boxing classes, found a trainer who worked with Golden Gloves, and he started training me one-on-one boxing sessions 2-3 times a week. I started working with my wife, who's getting a nutritionist license, on bettering my diet so I could start to get in physical better shape. And I ended up losing like 60 plus pounds over the year.
That was with a 60 pounds?
60 plus, like 62 pounds I lost.
So you did an inverse De Niro and Raging Bull.
Yeah. I was about 300 and something pounds when I got the role offer, and I'm about 245 now. I've learned a lot, both vocally, what I'm capable of, as well as physically, what I'm capable of.
We'll be back with more of Isaac's conversation with Ryan Speedo Green in just a moment.
This episode is brought to you by Bank of America. If you own or operate a business, whether it's a local operation or a global corporation, partnering with Bank of America could be your smartest move. By teaming with Bank of America, you'll enjoy exclusive digital tools, award-winning insights, and business solutions so powerful you'll make every move matter. Position your business to capitalize on opportunity in a moment's notice. Visit bankofamerica.com/bankingforbusiness to learn more. What would you like the power to do? Bank of America, N.A., copyright 2023. At the end of your first year, Discover credit cards automatically double all the cash back you've earned. That's right, everything you earned doubled. All the cash back from eating at your favorite soup dumpling restaurant doubled. All the cash back from that trip where you sort of learned to snowboard also doubled. And the best part, you don't have to do anything ridiculous to get it. Nope, Discover does it automatically. Seriously though, see terms and check it out for yourself at discover.com/match.
Listeners, we really want to hear from you. Every other Thursday on Working Overtime, we answer listener questions. So please tell us your creative challenges and let us help you. Drop us a line at working@slate.com. You can also send a voice memo to that address or give us a ring at 304-933-WORK and leave a voicemail. And if you're enjoying this episode, don't forget to subscribe to Working wherever you listen to your podcasts. Now let's return to Isaac's conversation with Ryan Speedo Green.
You know, Emile Griffith is a real life figure. Did you research him? Is research part of your process? How'd you get sort of into his inner life?
Yeah, I researched him. I watched his fights, specifically the Benny Perret fights, which he had 3 of them. The guy who one of the antagonists of the show, Benny Perret, who was actually a friend of Emile, and Emile fought him 3 times. And in their 3rd fight, Benny, who had suffered in injuries in his last fight before fighting Emile, was looking for any mental advantage he could have over Emile, because obviously physically he was injured. He decided to sort of break the cardinal fraternal rule of sports and not, to reveal someone's personal life in front of the public, and decided to talk about Emile's out of ring activities and called him the Spanish derogatory word for gay. And it angered Emile, and Emile ended up killing him in the ring. He hit him, arguably 17 to 27 times in 7 seconds, put him in a coma, and then 10 days later he died.
You play Emile over the course of, it's almost 25 years, right? The first song when you appears in
I play Emile over from a teenager to... So it's actually a span of I want to say 15 to 17 years.
Got it.
Yeah.
How did you think about tracking the age kind of in your body and mannerisms over the course of the show?
So when you first see me, I'm almost innocent, innocent in a sense of growing up in the same place my whole life, going on this journey to travel to America, to live my dream of being a hat-making, singing baseball player.
Right.
That's the kind of innocence that this young man had traveling to America, to New York City, from the Virgin Islands. And then that's when you first see me. And then when I get I become a hat maker, which is great for me. I get discovered at the hat factory by Howie, who is Howie Albert, who is the owner of the hat factory and also plays the trainer which is basically combining two characters in one in Emile's life. He discovers me and is like, this guy should be making hats. He has the body of a boxer. He should be a boxer. Let me train him. And my mother, who sees opportunity to make money and sort of better our lives, says, instead of being a hat maker, you should be a boxer. And I don't want to be a boxer. I want to make hats. But she sees the potential to make more money and better herself in the process.
Right.
So she pushes me to be a boxer, and I have a natural talent for it. And then you see my character sort of also discover his sexuality, like, the first experiences of him going to a nightclub where he sees, men dancing with men, and, you get to see the aspect of his sort of becoming a man, and realizing his love for men. And I get to portray that as well. And then sort of the turmoil of society at the time telling me that that's not what a man is.
Right.
And then you get to also to have that discovery where he has to come face to face with people who he doesn't want to know his personal life, knowing it, or at least suspecting it.
And when you're preparing emotionally for something like that opera, watching you, it doesn't feel like you're just riding the music where it takes you emotionally, but like how do you get into the character in that moment and sort of access that difficult conflict?
Yeah, I mean, I identify as heterosexual. I'm a heterosexual male.
Right.
But I'm an ally. I have many, many friends who are LGBTQ+, and I have listened to their stories since I was in college. Like, I met my first openly gay man when I was in college. I grew up in the South, where there are a lot of LGBTQ+ people around me growing up even, but they weren't open about it. Mm-hmm. And even the closest people to me, older adults, like even the person who was one of my adopted fathers growing up, who was a gay man, but he never openly talked about it to me or told me as a young man. I didn't question it. I didn't think about it. I just thought that this man was amazing and better to me than my own father. But it was until college where I met my first openly gay adult, and he was my fraternity brother in my fraternity and pledged with me. And basically, I answered all my questions because I had so many questions as a straight man to ask a gay man, because nobody in my life could ask these questions. And it was I think every straight man should have that opportunity to have those kind of conversations with a gay man or LGBTQ+ member of the community to be able to ask those questions and not be afraid to ask them and get the answers, the truthful answers. Because if you don't ask questions, if you don't have those conversations, then you'll never educate yourself. You'll just be a closed-minded bigot, in my opinion. And I was so lucky, so blessed that I was able to have that kind of experience as an 18, 19-year-old young man. And for me, like, it's an honor and a privilege to represent a complex character like Emile, who, his not only character getting able to show another aspect of love on stage of the Met, and a sexual, sexy scene, with my colleague Ed, who, if you go on the Met's social media, you'll be able to see our clip of our duet, which is steamy as hell, so be ready.
It's steamier than a normal opera number, for sure.
Oh, yeah.
For sure.
Oh, yes, it is. And how lucky am I that I get to have my first stage kiss on stage, be with Ed,
Yeah, totally.
I've not kissed a woman or a man on stage, and my first show I get to kiss both. So, kill multiple birds with one stone. The research that I had to go into, I had the foundation already to, through all the stories that I heard through my LGBTQ+ colleagues. And if I would tell anybody out there, get those stories, because you'll never know when you have to portray a character, even if you're a woman portraying a pants role, like Carabino or something like that. Like, maybe talk to one of your male colleagues and ask them about how their experiences as a young man, going through puberty, falling in love with every woman you see.
Right.
Yeah. Or even as a straight man portraying a gay man, or a gay man portraying a straight man, because even if you are LGBTQ plus, your experiences are going to be different than a straight woman or a straight man.
Right.
And just to have those conversations, those stories, with someone you trust, I think is incredibly important.
This is your second time working with Terrence Blanchard, because you were also in Fire Shut Up in My Bones. And yet, this opera was done before with a different actor playing young Emile. Can you talk a little bit about your collaboration with Terrence and how it's grown or changed over these two operas? Because you already mentioned earlier, for example, some of the part had to be adjusted for your range, and he's a brilliant composer of long standing, but this was the first major opera he wrote, if I remember correctly. And you have a huge, experience with opera itself. So can you just talk a little bit about, I don't know, what your collaboration is like, and how you two work together?
First of all, like, even the buildup of me working with Terrence for the first time was by chance. Mm-hmm. My entire life has been about breaking preconceptions of what opera is, and who can sing opera. Because, for maybe the normal person, what they consider an opera singer and what opera is would not necessarily be me, and not necessarily be Terrence Blanchard.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, and that's an amazing aspect of my career so far as it is, and also Terrence's. But what I can also, break the preconception of opera fans is that, when people see a person of color, especially opera fans, they may have a certain preconception of what is a person of color singing opera. Like, maybe, this person probably had a gospel background or a church background or something like this. And that's not the case with me. Like, I did not grow up singing in the church. I was the kid in the back sleeping on the pews during the service. My mom was kicking me to wake up, and I was also the kid who, I did not grow up listening to opera. I did not grow up thinking about opera, even considering doing it or even liking it. It happened later in my life. Even singing, I never grew up singing. I was the kid, I'd rather go play Pokemon cards than, go sing anything. And the first time I sang a note was when I started singing opera. So the irony is, I'm probably the purest form of opera singer that there is. Probably more
Right.
so than opera singers, because I didn't grow up singing any other style of music, pop music, hip hop, any of that kind of stuff. I grew up singing opera. When I first started singing, it was opera. And my voice was first used to sing opera. And so when a lot of singers in Fire Shut Up My Bones and in Champion were people who grew up in the church, people who grew up singing R&B, people, a lot of the singers of color involved with it were those kind of singers. Who had that musical background at a very young age. And so when I got the offer to sing in Fire Shut Up My Bones, it was only because the guy who originally was singing Uncle Paul in Fire Shut Up My Bones, the late Arthur Woodley, had passed away. And so the Met came to me and asked me if I would be willing, and able to sing his role. And I was like, of course, an opportunity to open the Met season, in Fire Shut Up My Bones, and work with the first ever African-American composers to have his music performed at the Met. Are you kidding me? Please sign me up. And when Terrence, at least this is what I've been told, is when Terrence first heard me sing, because he had heard Arthur Woodley sing before, because Arthur Woodley had sung in Champion and in Fire Shut Up My Bones. He had sung in before. When he heard me sing in the first rehearsal, he looked over to the music staff and was like, why isn't this guy singing more of my music? and I would argue that I was the first kind of operatic voice of my style to be singing in a role of his.
How do you define that style, by the way?
Purely operatic,
purely operatic. Got it. Without an R&B sort of tinge or a rock and roll tinge, or
LaTanya has an incredible background, like one of the most multi-genre type of voices on the planet. And same thing with Angel Blue. Same thing with Will Liverman. Arthur Woodley. All of these singers who have sung in Terrence's operas are multi-genred singers. And maybe to my fault, I am a one-trick pony. I am an opera singing opera singer. I'm horrible at singing any other kind of music.
You don't go do karaoke sometime? You're not just like, let's go do karaoke and put on the Pointer Sisters or something?
Yeah, when I do sing karaoke, I'm there to shock you, maybe scare you. I'm the kind of guy I will try and sing some Whitesnake at a karaoke.
Amazing.
And it is the most operatic Whitesnake.
Incredible.
Yeah, so when in Champion, it was a huge stepping out of my comfort zone to sing it. If I think about the duet at the bar with Ed, which is this sultry, really in the second act, it is the most jazziest number in the second act, like the purest form of jazz on stage of the Met that you'll see.
Right.
And it is so out of my comfort zone, but Terrence really pushed me, as well as the music staff, Yannick and everybody working at the Met, to sing it with my voice, sing it with an operatic voice, and it'll come through. And if you listen to it, you'll see it. Like it can only be sung that way. And Ed, who has that multi-genred voice as well, he sings it very jazzy, and I sing it, I put my voice to the jazz style, the operatic voice to the jazz style. And I think that really showcases how important Terrence's music is and how his music can fit in the operatic world.
Well, Ryan Speedo Green, thank you so much for joining us this week to talk to us about your work and your process. It's been a pleasure having you.
It's an honor. Thank you.
Up next, Isaac and I will talk about preparation and how creative people who work in other genres can learn from the very specific artistic demands of being an opera singer.
This podcast is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Whether you're driving, cooking, or doing laundry, Progressive knows the podcasts you listen to go best when they're bundled with another activity, much like how their Progressive home and auto policies go best when they're bundled. Having these two policies together makes taking care of your insurance easier and could help you save too. Customers who save by switching their home and car insurance to Progressive save nearly $800 on average. That's a whole lot of savings and protection for your favorite podcast listening activities, like going on a road trip, cooking dinner, and even hitting the gym. Yep, your home and your car are even easier to protect when you bundle your insurance together. Find your perfect combo. Get a home and car insurance quote at Progressive.com today. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. National average 12-month savings of $793 by new customers surveyed who saved with Progressive between June 2021 and May 2022. Potential savings will vary.
This episode is brought to you by Bank of America. If you own or operate a business, whether it's a local operation or a global corporation, partnering with Bank of America could be your smartest move. By teaming with Bank of America, you'll enjoy exclusive digital tools, award-winning insights, and business solutions so powerful you'll make every move matter. Position your business to capitalize on opportunity in a moment's notice. Visit bankofamerica.com/bankingforbusiness to learn more. What would you like the power to do? Bank of America, N.A., copyright 2023.
Oh my God, Isaac, I am absolutely in love with Ryan Speedo Green. What a sweetheart.
Yeah, he's a mensch. It's very clear.
And it was really fascinating to hear Speedo's singing history, that opera is the only kind of singing that he's done. And it sounds like the only kind he has any interest in doing. I mean, obviously voices can be trained, and for opera, they must be trained whatever the raw material you come with. But there's a certain element, or you have it or you don't, in opera singing that doesn't necessarily have a parallel in, say, writing fiction or being in a rock band. Isaac, since you were a child actor and were clearly aware of having that particular talent at an early age, I have to ask you how that resonated for you and how your awareness of talent played out when you decided to give up acting.
maybe this is a dodge, but I'm not going to start with talking about myself for a second. I talk about myself enough. But I will just say that the more I study the history of art and talk to working artists, the more I think that while natural talent is, of course, extremely important, that even if you never have formal training, you need to have a technique and a toolbox at your disposal. It's true of athletes. It's true of artists, right? I mean, I watch a lot of tennis, and there's certain natural gifts that you can have that make you a better or worse prospect as a tennis player. Yeah. But you also need to have a huge amount of technique and a huge amount of training. And I think the same is true for art. Even a rock musician who's never taken a formal music lesson in their life has a lot of technique that they will have built up over the years. Yeah. I mean, I definitely had talent as an actor. I really believe that. Not that I've gone back and watched a videotape of myself performing or anything because, I'd want to die. But I do think I have had talent as an actor. What I didn't have is the toughness and discipline to develop the real technique that would have made me into a good actor who is more than just like a bag of tricks that get me applause.
I want to see those videos now. I am so glad you asked Speedo about his daily schedule, because I remember speaking with the mezzo-soprano Jamie Barton for working back in April 2020. And she told me that for many of the reasons that Speedo mentioned, she can't eat a quote-unquote proper meal, in other words, the big meal of the day, until after a performance, which often means after midnight or later. Speedo's preparation for this role was so physical and so committed, but it made me wonder about artists who work in other forms. Isaac, are you conscious of shifting the shape of your workday and your life schedule to support the particular project you're working on at the time?
Yes, actually. And I don't think it's just the people on stage who have to worry about this. A thing I realized as a young man directing plays, I'm going to try to talk about this shortly, but this is how it works. The week before an audience comes in is the hardest part of the process. You're exhausted. The pressure is really high. You're in rehearsals literally 12 hours a day. Things are breaking or needing to be restaged or cut constantly. The impulse for a lot of people is to lean into that and just live like an animal. I know a lighting designer who only smokes during tech week, right? And then he's like a chain smoker or whatever, but during the rest of the time, he lives a really healthy life. I realized eventually that I actually had to live healthier during that time because I really needed to be on the ball and I just couldn't have any part of my brain distracted by my body, right? And so I would, eat edamame and white rice for dinner. I mean, it was like I would eat really simply. I would just drink a lot of water, stuff like that. In terms of writing, I'll give you an example. If I'm on a deadline, I'm not going to drink or get high the night before a major writing day, just simply because my brain needs to be all there. I write best in the morning, so I try to keep the mornings free. If I'm having a crazy time in terms of my schedule or whatever, I try to find the pocket of time where I can watch a relevant movie, do project management, somehow touch the project every day until I have a moment to dig in. I have a really bad chair that I sit in to write that I'm actually sitting in right now that gave me back problems that needed physical therapy. So now I have stretches that I do. I mean, even just sitting at your desk, typing away, creativity is a physical act. And I think musicians understand this on a really deep level that not everyone else does.
Wow, interesting. In a similar way, it shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone that opera singers need to do vocal warm-ups, and Speedo talked about his vocal warm-up schedule and the checking in. That was fascinating. But I wonder, again, do you have any kind of equivalent? And is your writing warm-up different from your teaching warm-up or your podcast hosting warm-up? Is this something our listeners should be thinking about?
Well, I did have like walk-on music when I was coming to the Slate building to record, when we were doing Lend Me Your Ears, which the great Chow Tu produced. When I was walking to the building, because I live walking distance away, there was like a specific De La Soul song or a specific song by the Secret Machines that I would listen to get me like really pumped. Like, yeah, we're going to fucking teach people about Shakespeare today. The short answer is actually no. I mean, I don't have a writing warm-up. Lots of people do. I'm not ragging on it. Lots of people do 30 minutes of free writing, 5 minutes of guided meditation. They do breathing or whatever. An early guest on this show, the great novelist Megan Abbott, talked about some specific writing rituals she has. Maybe you light a candle. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
I'm bad at habit formation, as we've discussed before, but also I've always been really worried that if I got attached to that stuff, it would interfere with my writing when I wasn't able to do it due to circumstances. And maybe this is because I started, pretty soon after grad school. I had a kid and I was working around being a parent, but I just wanted to be the kind of writer who can just drop in and go and not be too precious about it. I'm at the place where I have breakfast. I finish my coffee and my oatmeal. I'm just going to open I'm opening the computer and I'm going. But I feel like for the people it does work for, when I've talked to them about it, it's sort of like you've created an invitation for the muse to arrive. And so I respect that. What about you? Do you do a lot of, once you're done with your Zettelkasten? I'm going to guess. I'm just going to guess that you don't, because you come from a freelance writing world with aggressive deadlines and you need to be able to you need to be able to just write all the time if you have to. And so I'm going to guess that even though you love all this productivity stuff, you don't have a pre-writing ritual at all.
No, I don't. Yeah, exactly. I just this is the time now. I'm just going to sit down and do it. Like, I'm very conscious of it's my job. And, I always think about something that Taffy Burdessa-Ackner, I think, said to you in your first interview with her, of like, my sister or cousin, the podiatrist, doesn't have to have the muse before she can do her job. Why should I? And so I kind of lean into that. This is my job. I'm just going to do it. It's time for work now. And I'm always inspired by remembering Roman. Roman was very much like, I'm on the buzz, or I'm waiting for my kid to come out of school. I've got a scrap of paper. I'm going to write, $1 million novel right now, and it's going to be amazing.
That's not me, but I do write notes to myself during that time. I'm working on a bunch of different freelance things right now. And so when I have downtime, I'm like, oh, don't forget to talk about this and that Shakespeare thing. Oh, don't forget to talk about that and this thing, little notes to future me.
That's smart. I was very moved. And again, incredibly impressed by Speedo's commitment to this particular role. The intense physical preparation and transformation. Everything about opera is sui generis, as we've said before, but his talk of making a promise to himself and the other people involved in the production really inspired me. And it obviously, led to an incredible transformation. So, given my established and already discussed love of self-improvement and productivity techniques, it made me want to find a similar way of explicitly spelling out my commitments to a new project when I take one on. Is that something you've ever done?
Well, I think that's what a nonfiction proposal is. If you want to view it romantically instead of as a mercenary business contract. And I'm a romantic, June. So I just feel like, you're laying out a vision of what that piece is, and you're getting money as a result of how you've laid out that vision. So it does feel a lot like that, much like our creative New Year's resolution episode that we do every year. I'm not a New Year's resolution guy, but I actually do take those resolutions we make on this show pretty seriously, So those are the closest I've gotten. With Speedo, obviously part of the commitment had to be physical. He had to go from weighing around 300 pounds to being a convincing boxer, right? And that's no small feat. And that he did it in that amount of time is pretty amazing. And I do want to say that because I think it's worth pointing out and underlining that we know in the back of our head that an actor's job is very physical, that an actor's material is the self, their instrument is the body, and they work really hard. But I think Speedo's experience here throws that into really profound relief. The people you're watching on stage or on your screen, they work hard to get to that artistic truth.
Oh my God, no kidding. And I have to say, your point about the nonfiction book proposal, yes, that's a really, really good point. My experience of writing a book proposal was arduous. It was also fun. And you're right, you're spelling out what you will do and making yourself accountable for a project for the next however many months or years. And so the more work and thought you put into it, the better. And then hopefully you sign a contract. And that's what a contract is, right? Yeah, it absolutely is. All right. Well, that's all we have time for this week. Listeners, we hope you've enjoyed the show. If you have, remember to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Then you'll never miss an episode. And just a reminder that by joining Slate Plus, you'll get ad-free podcasts, entire extra episodes of shows like Slow Burn and Big Mood, Little Mood. You'll get extra segments on shows like Ours and the Culture Gabfest and The Waves. You'll never hit a paywall on the Slate site, and you will be supporting our work here on Working. To learn more, go to slate.com/workingplus.
thank you to Ryan Speedo Green and to our champion producer, Cameron Drews. If you'd like to see Speedo in action in Champion, you can see him live through May 13th at the Metropolitan Opera. There will also be an encore screening of Champion in movie theaters on May 3rd. Go to fathomevents.com for more information and to find a screening in your area. We'll be back next week with June's conversation with actress Connie Nielsen. Will they just talk about Gladiator the whole time? Who knows? You'll find out when you hear it. Until then, get back to work.
Macy's is making moves to bring more parks to more people across the country. Throughout April, join Macy's in celebrating Earth Month by supporting Trust for Public Land, whose mission is to transform empty schoolyards into vibrant parks that communities can use outside school hours. Just round up your next in-store purchase or donate online to Trust for Public Land. Shop sustainable products and learn more from clean beauty business owners at macys.com/purpose.
Hey everybody, it's Tim Heidecker. You know me, Tim and Eric, Bridesmaids, and Fantastic Four. I'd like to personally invite you to listen to Office Hours Live with me and my co-hosts, DJ Doug Pound.
Hello.
And Vic Berger.
Howdy.
Every week we bring you laughs, fun, games, and lots of other surprises. It's live. We take your Zoom calls.
Music.
We love having fun. Excuse me?
Songs.
Vic said something.
Music.
Songs.
Music.
I like having fun. I like to laugh. I like to meet people who can make me laugh. Please subscribe now.